Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our journey through the real book number 215, Jerome Kern's great tune, Long Ago and Far Away. Lyrics by Ira Gershwin, who was George Gershwin's brother, who continued writing with different lyricists after his brother's unfortunate early death. And this is one of the great classics. And this whole series of jazz piano lessons is to get us looking at standards in a way that's beyond notes on the page. You know, it's not just ink that somebody wrote on a page. They're tunes that have a sound. It sounds obvious, but we don't always work from there. There's chord progressions, and also understand how these fit into the pantheon of standards, how this is similar to other tunes or different, or some approaches that have been taken from these, from maybe a holistic point of view, how we can learn jazz standards that way. And we're working through the real book tune by tune. This is the 6th edition, falling apart. It's a sign that it's been used. And 400 tune project. I'm giving myself an 8-year project, and hopefully inspiring you to do something similar, or at least check out some of the tunes that you like and get to know these people. So Jerome Kern, all right. Here we go. Question for you. What other really famous real book tune did Jerome Kern write? It's one of the biggies, often abbreviated to the first letter of each word because it's a long one. It's long to write out. Here we go. Bing. All the Things You Are, Jerome Kern. He also wrote Showboat, which was one of the first, if not the first, modern sort of Broadway musical, and wonderful, wonderful composer. So let's talk about harmonies. First of all, the structure of the tune, if you're looking at the tune in your real book, it's not A, B, A, like a lot of these tunes are. It's like All of Me, for instance. It's A, and then a B section or something else, and then another A, and then C. So it's either A, B, A, C, or you could think of it as A, B, A, B prime. Here I'd call it a C section because the second ending is nothing like the first. All of Me might be more of an A, B prime. But again, these terms are subjective. It's how we think of it. But it's basically you have something. It starts out with the kind of refrain, and then it goes to something else. It modulates, and then we go back to the beginning, and then there's something else that's higher in this case, so it has sort of a melodic arc. The main thing here is, you know, in a lot of beginning and intermediate jazz instruction methods, they talk a lot about the 2-5-1 chord progression. You know, practice your 2-5-1 voicings, and then your licks. Yes, it's important. The 2-5's all over the place. But I would say before you do that, or at the same time, also practice a 1-6-2-5, which will then resolve to another 1. So the 2-5-1 is in there, 1-6-2-5-1. But the 1 and the 6, first of all, especially if you're a beginner, it's a lot easier to start on the 1 chord. Because I always thought it was kind of obtuse to, okay, well, I'm in the key of C, but I'm not going to play a C chord. I'm going to go up to the 2, the 1, which you have to know how to do, but maybe not at the beginning. Maybe it's better to just start with that 1 chord and then go to the 6, 2, 5. 1-6-2-5 is like taking a little trip, okay, back home. I start home, I go outside, I get the mail, come back down my driveway, come back home. It's like this circle. This circuit, and it's in so many tunes, you know, like 1-6-2-5, even Heart and Soul was originally a 1-6-2-5. It's usually played with a 4 chord now instead. But 1-6-2-5. 1-6-2-5 was the main chord progression in popular music, which is similar to jazz, from the 1920s to the, say, early 50s. And then somewhere in the late 50s with rock and roll and doo-wop, 6, they went to the 4 chord instead of the 2. So you could say 1-6-2-5 is earlier popular music, and 1-6-4-5 is 1950s through the present, or at least the 90s, right? And then those chords sort of get rearranged in different ways. But those are the two main chord progressions. If you can play 1-6-2-5 And in pop and rock, 1, 6, 4, 5, you'll know a lot of tunes, or the basis of a lot of tunes. So this is a good case in point. If you look at your real book, the first 4 chords in the key of F are F6, that's the 1, D minor 7, 6, G minor 7's the 2, 5. So it's 1, 6, 2, 5. So if you know that chord progression, you know the first 2 measures of Long Go and Far Away. The next 2 measures, they just leave out the 6. It's 1 for 4 beats, and then 2, 5, and then again 1, 2, 5. So if you know the 1, 6, 2, 5, you'll know the first 6 measures of this really easily. Then measures 7 and 8, it's a little different. It goes A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7. So instead of 1, 6, 2, 5, it's 3, 6, 2, 5. They just substitute the A minor for the F. So it's 3, 6, 2, 5, which is very common. And sometimes the 6th chord, instead of D minor, it will become D7. So basically, the A section is 1, 6, 2, 5, or simple variations of it. And then what happens in the first ending? Well, there's an abrupt modulation to A flat, but then 1, 6, 2, 5 right away. So you see this all over the place. Even the very end, F6 to A flat diminished 7, 2, 5, 1 can be seen as a 3, flat 3, 2, 5. So if you know the 1, 6, 2, 5, and then you really study each group of like 2 measures in this tune, you'll see the 1, 6, 2, 5s, and then ways that they can be altered, either by leaving out the 6, or starting with the 3, or doing a 3, flat 3, 2, 5. Just sort of basically a lot of the common ways that this is altered is right in this tune. So if you know this tune from that point of view, it's going to help you learn a lot of others. It's a beautiful composition. It has a special place in my heart because when I was in college at the University of Connecticut, one of my teachers, my freshman year before he retired, was a wonderful person and composer named Hale Smith, who is kind of legendary among people who knew him. And I mean, he taught Eric Dolphy ear training out of Hindemith's Elementary Training for Musicians book. And when Eric passed away, he left Hale and his wife, Juanita, all his like musical scores and some unreleased recordings, which were eventually released on Blue Note Records in the 80s. Hale was also friends with Dizzy Gillespie and many other. So he arranged this song for Chico Hamilton's Quintet. It's a really wonderful group that you don't hear much anymore, but it was, I think, 1959, somewhere around there. Eric Dolphy was in the group. I think they had cello and Jim Hall on guitar for a while. Really wonderful group. And Hale did an arrangement. It's a very melancholy, beautiful arrangement of this tune. Hale retired after my first year at college, but I stayed in touch with him. And I used to ask a million questions, like millions of questions every week. I'd go into his office before school started and he'd spend an hour with me. Hey, what was it like to do this, or advice on this? He was very patient, gave me a lot. And then years later, I was at a concert of his music in Harlem at the Schoenberg Institute, or Schoenberg Center, and Chico Hamilton was there, the drummer. And Hale introduced me to Chico Hamilton. I'm meeting this legendary drummer, and Hale introduced me to him as the reason he retired. So I took it as a badge of honor. I think he was kidding around. So, but maybe I just drove him to retire by asking so many questions. I'm going to start out by just sort of creating a mood. I'm kind of thinking of that arrangement that Hale Smith did for Chico Hamilton's group, which is very melancholy and just beautiful, sort of long ago and far away, like thinking back through the mists of time to something. And I'm going to create a mood and then go into the tune from there. Beautiful composition. So to recap what we were talking about before, learn your 1-6-2-5s in addition to just the 2-5-1s. That's probably the biggest thing here. The other thing, I was thinking back while I was playing, you know, I was a college student in, you know, my 20s in the 1980s. And some of these legends were still around. You know, I didn't study with Dizzy Gillespie, but I did meet him once. I got to work for Jerry Mulligan as his assistant, met a lot of people through him, and people like Hale Smith that aren't as well known, Billy Taylor. And I just, you know, I didn't take it for granted. I did not take it for granted. I appreciated it, and I knew it was very special, and I just soaked it up. But I didn't quite realize what it would feel like now when those people aren't around anymore. There's some questions I would love to ask Billy Taylor, for instance, that we can't ask him. So the second thing is, after practice your 1-6-2-5s, take advantage of people who are still around, you know, people you want to study with or get to know or go see in concert, and soak it up, because you might not always have that opportunity. So good luck with your playing. Next week we are on to, never know what's going to come up next, Lonnie's Lament, John Coltrane, and now for something completely different. So good luck with your playing. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the real book, and let the music flow.